and welcome to Literary Hype. I am Stephanie, your literary hype woman, and today's author conversation is a guest that is returning because, you know, Jayci Lee keeps herself quite busy, and this is taking it to the extreme of putting out 2 books in 1 week. And she did it my birthday week, so it felt like a present to me personally, which, thank you, Jayci, for your gift of 2 books for my birthday. But those 2 books are That Prince Is Mine, which is her Emma retelling, or she calls it fanfiction, as well as her romantasy debut with Nine-Tailed. So we have a lot to talk about. So without any further ado, here's my conversation with Jayci Lee. Well, welcome back to Literary Hype. I think you're going to be the first one to be on the podcast twice, because since I saw you last, I started the podcast, and it took me forever to edit the first one.
Yes.
because
we had
technical issues, which made me not want to touch it. But I got it done, and it became out in the podcast era. So you're going to be probably the first one to be on the podcast twice. So it's been almost exactly a year since that first interview.
Yeah.
Almost exactly.
Yeah, August.
So what have you been up to in the last year?
Oh, I don't know. I just published 2 books this week, and I'm working on the next two books at the same time, so utter craziness.
How are you handling putting out 2 books in 1 week?
I am not. I am so overwhelmed and frazzled. I am not all here. I'm sorry, guys. I'll try to be funny and witty, but I'm mostly like, duh.
I mean, that's how I feel after a week at San Diego Comic-Con and getting up early for this. So we can be duh together.
I know. So much
but it'll
fun.
be fun.
Yeah.
So which book do you want to start with? Because you have 2 in 1 week.
We'll go in order. Tuesday, That Prince Is Mine, my rom-com, came out. And then Thursday's when Nine-Tailed came out. So okay. I like going in order, chronological, linear, you know.
Makes sense. So for anyone who hasn't seen That Prince Is Mine, talk a little bit about what it's about. Because you gave us hints before, and now it's here.
Yeah, it's here. I can't believe it. It's a royal foodie rom-com. So it's about a royal court cuisine instructor, Emma, who thinks she has life all figured out, and about a prince in disguise. He's the prince of a small fictional European country who is kind of, sort of based on Chris Pine. He looks like Chris Pine in my head.
So Princess Diaries vibes?
Princess Diaries 2, totally. Yeah. She is set on having an arranged marriage, and he has kind of run away to avoid an arranged marriage, and he's looking for his soulmate. Hopeless romantic, super pragmatic, and opposites ultimately attract.
So Emma is a royal court cuisine instructor.
Yes.
So for anyone who hasn't heard of that, what does that job entail? And what is royal court cuisine?
Joseon Dynasty, which was the, I guess, last monarchy in Korean culture. I think it ended in 1905 or so. But that era, they had this expansive culinary culture that they served the king and queen, and all the effort that went into making that food, and those foods kind of live on, and they're very different from the Korean food that you know, like the spicy tteokbokki, like the Korean royal court cuisine version is like soy sauce, lighter, more delicate, harmonious. So Emma is all about harmony and beauty and just putting her heart into cooking for others, her family, and teaching others to create joy with every dish.
This is an Emma retelling, sort of.
It's a fanfic, I like to say.
There you go. That's a good way to put it. So when you were writing this, what kind of research and reference did you put into Jane Austen's Emma?
Of course, I reread Jane Austen's Emma, and I watched like 2 different versions on Netflix and whatnot. But I've already watched it like 20 times. I love the Gwyneth Paltrow one. and Jeremy Northam, Mr. Knightley, is Mr. Knightley to me. And I just kind of took the essence of the characters that I believe were the essence of the characters, where Mr. Knightley is essentially very polite and well-mannered but opinionated. Like, he's strong and stern but also very kind, and he loves very deeply, even though it's in secret for a long time. And Emma, she thinks she has everything figured out, doesn't she? And she wants everything around her to be perfect as well. She meddles in people's business, especially love lives, and she's very certain of herself. And I like how uncertain Michelle Chevalier means knight in French. So Michelle teaches her that she has not figured everything out.
What is it about Jane Austen's work that is inspiring you and is still inspiring people to do retellings of her stories hundreds of years later?
I feel like she's the original rom-com author, the tropes that she's created. So Emma is a friends to lovers, Pride and Prejudice is enemies to lovers, Persuasion is second chance romance. I mean, she started it all. So I just love her. She's my favorite author, so I could gush on and on. Oh, it was terrifying writing this, even though it's more of a fanfic and not an exact retelling. I'm like, oh my gosh, am I gonna do her justice? And are people gonna like kill me because I got something wrong? But when I say it's a fanfic, it takes the pressure off a little, you know?
I mean, there's got to be a lot of pressure with a retelling. Like, retellings are so popular, and people want to see it done right.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, done right. That's a scary phrase.
It is, but I think you did a good job with this. Okay?
Thank you.
That's just my opinion, but whatever. Both of these characters, Michelle and Emma, they're both dealing with the inner turmoil of battling for duty or love, and
Yes.
which one comes first. How did you balance the same inner turmoil with two different characters?
I feel that I do that often in my books because in some ways I think everybody is going through that, because there's always going to be things to balance, priorities, and the pragmatic and romantic, and it's always a struggle. And for them it's slightly different because where they're coming from, right? Their outlook. It's the same, in some ways it's the same, but they approach it so differently that I enjoyed kind of unfolding that through their two POVs.
And I'm probably going to butcher this word, but I'm going to try. Jongsong?
That's very good. I'm so excited.
Yay!
Very
all my listening to
good.
K-pop is helping.
Oh yes, definitely.
So Jongsong is this concept of working hard with a generous heart, and they talk about it at the very beginning that this is something that Emma really believes in.
Yes.
So kind of talk about what that means in the context of being a creative.
For me, I definitely write every word, every scene, every book with 정성, which means I ultimately think about who I will be giving this book to, presenting this book to. And in some ways, it's the opposite of careless. It's like putting all your care and love and effort into it. It's carefully, finely crafted to the best of my abilities, because it's a show of respect and love. When you put 정성 into something and present it to someone, it is a gift from the heart.
It's such a sweet concept, especially like the way she talks about it and with the terms of cooking. Like, you think of made with love, and putting that into a slightly different cultural context was really interesting to see.
Oh, I'm glad. I just wanted to share that because it's such a strong running theme in my upbringing, and we're taught to do things with 정성 when we're like cooking for our family, or when something's very special to us. We have to just treat it with care and respect.
So Michelle is from a fake country in Europe. Why did you decide to do a fictional country instead of picking a real country for him to come from?
because it gives me more freedom. I could make the country what I hope that some country can be like, some monarchies to be like, because this is a multicultural relationship and ultimately multicultural marriage. And I needed a country, I needed a leader and people who were progressive and open-minded, open-hearted, who will allow Emma to have a happily ever after rather than heartbreak after heartbreak.
So now we got to switch gears and talk about Nine-Tailed.
Okay.
Which there is one thing that these two books have in common, and it's that they both have a pronunciation guide at the beginning.
Yes.
And like notes on romanization. Why was it important to you to include that and include the Korean words throughout your story?
The stories I was telling required for me to use Korean words. Otherwise, describing in English every time is going to get tedious for the readers. It's going to throw the pacing off. And I found it difficult to romanize Korean words. I'm fluent in Korean, but Korean alphabet is completely different. And I had to learn how to romanize Korean words. And I'm like, this is not intuitive. And I can't expect my readers to just intuitively know how to pronounce these things. But with like a little guidance, they are totally capable of pronouncing it correctly in their head, right? So why not give them the power to do that instead of backing away, oh, it's too hard, it's too confusing. No, you know how to do it. You got this.
So Nine-Tailed is very Korean folklore inspired. What was it about the nine-tailed fox that made you want to dive into this world and bring it into our modern world?
When I was a little girl, I was very precocious and...
Never.
What? I look so innocent. But the grown-ups like saw past that and nicknamed me Kumio, which is nine-tailed fox. And I was just up one night, everyone was asleep, the house was quiet, and I'm thinking, so here I am in the US. I hardly remember, my early childhood in Korea, and this is my home. And I'm like, what if a Kumio, actual Kumio, had to come to the US, make it her home, and adjust? So it was about me thinking and daydreaming about how I came to the US and the two identities I had to straddle. I felt like it was multifold because I'm Korean and American, but then in terms of friendship, I wasn't Koreanized enough to be friends with the Koreanized people. I wasn't Americanized enough for the second generation Korean Americans. And so it was, and then, there's the whole, majority and minority issue. So I felt like I didn't quite belong anywhere. And I wanted Sunny to experience that or to express that for me to figure it out. I tend to think out loud, or writing things, telling stories help me figure myself out, my life out. And I just put a lot of my experiences into books, and this was just one of them.
So for anyone who hasn't seen this book online, tell us a little bit about the plot of Nine-Tailed.
Okay, so Sunny is a 132-year-old fox. She came to the U.S. when she was 18, and she doesn't age, so she could only stay in one city for a few years at a time. So she's been journeying and roaming the U.S., living this nomadic life for over 100 years. And she is running away from a bloody, traumatic past and the loss of a loved one. So her ultimate goal is to work dead-end jobs, make no friends, make no attachments. And she got close to caring too much about these two brothers 8 years ago, and she abandoned them in the middle of the night. And he suddenly shows up. She lives in Las Vegas. She sells cigarettes and stuff at a crappy little casino in a crappy little dress, and she's perfectly happy with that. But Ethan, her friend, shows up and tells her his older brother was murdered and he needs her help to find the killer. And the older brother was like one of her closest friends in over 100 years, someone who got almost too close that she got scared and ran away. And so they travel from Las Vegas to Korea and on to the realm of four kingdoms on a quest to find the killer. But it turns out this quest is so much more than just vengeance. It's about saving the world from annihilation, all complete darkness.
Before we get on to the plot some more, I do want to touch on one thing that I love about this is that in so many fantasy books, it's the male character is like the one that's so old and magical.
I know.
And they're like chasing after having the romance with the younger girl.
Yeah.
I really love that this flips it on its head. And it's the magical being is the woman and she's older, and then it's the younger guy. And she's like, I can't because you're so much younger. I loved that you flipped that.
I had so much fun. I'm like, she's the older woman and he's the hot younger guy, get used to it.
It's about dang time.
Yes.
But plot-wise, so not only do we have the reality version of the world that they're in, but also the magical realms and this mystery.
Yes.
So how did you approach balancing each of those elements and weaving the mystery through the plot?
So sometimes my mind can be a little chaotic. Ultimately, everything comes together and makes sense. But I loved reading fantasy. I love reading romance. I love reading urban fantasy. So my mind just made up this story where I'm like, let's weave all of that in together. So there are lots of different strands running through it. And I am a pantser or discovery writer where I learn things as I write them, just like a reader reading my book. I write linearly and I surprise myself. I'm like, oh my God, that's what happened and what's going on here? And it adds like excitement to writing, and I'm just so excited to find out the story with you guys. So the mystery and all of that just sort of happened as it tends to for my books. Things kind of happen, but subconsciously they're very well thought through, I promise.
So with Nine-Tailed, that's a romantasy, and that Princess Mine is just a regular rom-com that's more normal.
Contemporary, yeah.
Did you find you needed to take a different approach when you were handling the two different genres?
You would think, right? You would think I would outline a little and be more organized in writing the fantasy romance because there are so many threads to keep track of, but I decided to do it all in my head because I like a challenge.
It's the lawyer in you.
No, the lawyer in me was more organized, but when I'm in my creative mode, I can't stop. I'm just so eager to write the story that I can't stop to organize my thoughts. I wish I can sometimes because it is hard to keep track of everything for the romantasy, but it's, you gotta just accept who you are and you have to accept your method, and mine is just doing it all in my head and just, white fisting through it.
We gotta talk a little bit about Nine-Tailed's cover because it's so pretty. How did you get to that point with that cover and that cover artist?
It's all her. It's all her, and my acquiring editor had a vision of all these colors coming through, and those colors are significant and important because the realm of four kingdoms represents four elements, four life forces, and each of them, so I'm going to say water, sky, underworld, and mountains. And each of them have a specific color associated with their life force, their key. And the tails that are just bursting with color represent the life forces. And it's significant, it's more significant when you get to book 2 that I'm writing. It's very important. Okay, I'm very excited.
The amount of comments that I've seen of, where's book 2?
I know.
When's book 2 coming?
So I am working very hard on it. I'm gonna say, fingers crossed, I will not be late. I'll get it in on time, and we're probably looking at summer 2025.
I had a feeling it was going to be a full year.
I know. Gosh, I'm writing 2 books. You're getting my Persuasion retelling, which is an actual retelling. And oh my gosh, they're going to be so close together again. I just realized. Okay. All right, I'm okay. Let's do this. We are doing an interview.
This just makes it easier on us because then we can talk about both books at one time.
Okay. Yeah.
It's just we do one
We're
instead
efficient.
Yes,
I like
it's more
efficiency.
efficient. You put all your work into one point and then it's okay, now I can enjoy and write again.
Yeah, that.
Does your Persuasion retelling have a title yet that you can say?
Yes. Yes. And so that Princess Mine is a play on the song The Boy Is Mine. And my Persuasion retelling is Give Me a Reason.
Just give me a reason.
Perfect. It's Give Me a Reason. And
I'm sorry to everyone that just had to hear me sing.
No, I was getting chills. Oh my gosh. It's like Pink.
She's so good.
She is so good. And the angst of that, it's a second chance romance, and that song is so in tune with, I think, Anne's point of view. So it's Anne and Frederick, and Anne basically is just saying, give me a reason and I'll give you everything. Just give me a reason. And there are cover-like things switching back and forth right now, and I'm really excited. But it also is happening during release week, so overwhelmed but super excited.
Well, talking about excitement, what was your reaction like finding out that Nine-Tailed was going to be one of Amazon's first reads?
It was like, ah, you know that meme? Ah! I was so excited. It's such an amazing opportunity marketing-wise. I've always been published with Big 5 publishers, and Amazon does things so differently, and I'm glad that I am, with my books, pursuing these 2 different routes. I'm doing everything I can to get my books out to you guys, okay? It's not hard, it's not easy for a BIPOC author to have visibility, so I'm trying, guys.
And we appreciate it.
Thank you.
Are you still doing Harlequins too, or have you let that go for the rest of this?
Well, Harlequin Desire no longer exists, and I am finding that writing 2 full-length, standalone books is occupying every moment of my life.
Understandably.
So yeah, Harlequin's on pause for now, but they've been amazing in supporting me, so they always will have a special place in my heart.
Okay, well, the last question we always ask. It's that time. It's the last question.
Okay.
It's this literary hype, so what books are you hyped about?
What did I read? Kathy Yardley, Do Me a Favor. That is a Gen X, sweet, sexy rom-com, and I am just blown away by how well she did that. It is such a fun book. You guys have to check it out. What else have I read that I loved? There's so many books. Heaven and Earth Grocery Store. I really
The
enjoyed
Barnes & Noble Book of the Year.
Oh, see, I pick good books to read.
That's true.
It was beautifully written, and I really enjoyed. I felt more like a reader than like it was work, because sometimes I'm blurbing or I'm researching, and this was just beautiful. It was an escape. It was heart-wrenching, but also an escape. It got me out of my head, so I really enjoyed that.
Well, thank you so much for taking time to talk about both of your book babies for Literary Hype.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Thanks again to Jayci for taking time out of her steamy lit con schedule to talk to me about her books, That Prince Is Mine and Nine-Tailed. If you'd like to get hold of either of these or any of her past books, the links to do so are down in the description below. If you enjoyed this conversation, don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe to the Literary Hype channel if you haven't done so already, and share this with a friend. Thanks so much for watching. I'll see you next time.